Mike Mazzei is our guest here today, former state senator, now running for governor on the GOP ticket. Mike, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
You know, I've been doing a lot of these conversations. I think this is looking like a very interesting primary to follow from my perspective. For you, trying to set yourself apart right now, what is kind of a crowded field, what's the key and what do you think makes you different?
Well, it seems like everybody else in this race, Evan, wants to talk about all of Oklahoma's problems. I'm the one candidate that is talking about real solutions around a bold conservative plan to make Oklahoma a no-income tax state, abolish property taxes for seniors and veterans, launch a massive statewide literacy program so our kids actually learn to read at grade level, and deal with this mess of foreign ownership of land all over the state of Oklahoma by simply enforcing the Oklahoma Constitution, which forbids the foreign ownership of land.
And I want to ask you about that here in a few minutes. I've heard you say that Oklahoma, and you're a finance guy. I mean, you were, the longtime Senate finance chairman?
10 years.
Right? And then you also you were the first finance secretary for Governor Stitt when he first came into office. So, yeah, and privately, you're a financial advisor. You have a big financial private company that you run. So, but I've heard you say that Oklahoma doesn't have a money problem, it has a money management problem, which is a great thing to say if you are in money management as you are. Why do you say that?
Well, we got a $30 billion budget, but we've got some financial foolishness going on. Just look at the budget agreement that was just launched. The state of Oklahoma taxpayers are paying Google's $40 million property taxes every year for Mays County. Google doesn't need taxpayer money. The legislature just launched a $200 million investment fund, and there's already 3 state savings accounts. And this investment fund is going to create thousands of dollars worth of fees for the person who got awarded the contract.
Yeah. The money managers?
But all the while, you know, down in Altus and Guyman, they're worried about water infrastructure issues.
Sure.
And our 29 career techs, we've got 7,500 students on the waiting list that want a skilled trade for a great career. They didn't get a funding increase at all.
And so there is this tightness within the budget that we hear about. We saw it this year with the legislative session. We certainly have a hearing that it's going to be even tighter, perhaps in the years to come. So when we talk about cutting taxes, as you said, bringing down the income tax to zero eventually, the senior property tax. From a budgetary standpoint, explain to me why this isn't the best time to do it, just because of the constraints, because that tax money is needed to pay for this budget that is large.
Well, in the first year of a Mazzei administration, I will propose reducing the state income tax rate from 4.5% to 3% as step one in a 3-part program to make Oklahoma a no-income tax state.
Right.
We've lost 2 more energy headquarters to Texas. Mm-hmm. The state of Tennessee has an economy that's growing 58% more than ours over a decade. Why? They're both no-income tax states. We better get on board or keep getting left behind. And my plan to become a no-income tax state is largely based on just cleaning up the mess in the tax code that they don't do in Tennessee. For example, step 1 and step 2 are completely dedicated to unwinding exemptions, deductions, credits, rebates, on and on. That's costing the tax system $2 billion.
So you're saying that there is enough money that we're bringing in right now in taxes. You're saying that inside of all of that, there's money to find. That right now we can basically streamline what we have.
We can go from 4.5% to 2.5% in the first 2 parts of our strategy by just cleaning up the tax code, and we won't have any more tax collections coming in. We won't have any less.
Can I ask you about education? Because all of this, when we talk about education, all of this is about investment, all of it's about money. You talked about the literacy thing, which it sounds like, you've followed what's happened in Mississippi, how they went from last to way up near the top when it comes to their reading rate. And they invested a lot of money. And it does look like Oklahoma lawmakers this session have kind of put us on a path to do that, the same kind of path that I've heard you talk about. Are you excited with where we are going, and is this a path that you as governor would support?
I applaud the work that the legislature did to adopt the Strong Readers Act.
Right.
For accountability in the system, so kids are learning to read by third grade, because after third grade they need to read to learn.
Right.
Unfortunately, we haven't adopted the Mississippi model yet. I have actually had a meeting with the statewide literacy director of Mississippi. Her name is Amanda Malone, and we talked about the 3 critical elements that help them go from 50th to 1st in the country in reading outcomes, while we languish at 49th. The most important critical element, which the legislature did not address, is they removed all the balanced literacy, liberal establishment reading curriculum that's been a disaster all over the country. So in Mississippi, the State Department of Education only has 6 approved reading curriculum.
Okay.
And that's what their 140 school districts get to choose
They're
from.
consistent, and they're phonics-based, correct? They brought all that back into schools.
Exactly. The State Department of Education in Oklahoma has 24 approved reading curriculums that 500 school districts can choose from, and it's still embedded with this disastrous balanced literacy program. I'm the only candidate in the race that knows how to implement the full-blown Mississippi model, and in my first week in office, I will sign an executive order directing the State Department of Education to terminate these disastrous 24 reading curriculums and replace it with a phonics-based curriculum.
So that's obviously one of your top priorities. You talked about the ownership by foreign entities of Oklahoma land, specifically out of China. We've seen a lot of the medical marijuana fields, some of it legal, some of it not. That's been a constant battle, and that's something that you're also very passionate about.
Indeed, we've learned from law enforcement that they believe the Chinese Communist Party owns land in all 77 counties. Think about it, all 77 counties, which has created a public safety crisis because all these marijuana grow farms are connected with drug trafficking.
A lot of them are, yeah.
Human trafficking.
Yeah.
Well, it's also a national security crisis because we have 5 major military installations. And from CCP-controlled land, they could launch weapon strikes with drones, just like we're seeing in the war in Iran.
So what do you do about this?
Title 22, Article 22, I should say, of the Oklahoma Constitution forbids the foreign ownership of land. The legislature and the Attorney General's office in 2023 allowed this disastrous loophole into the system that literally allows someone to check a box, Evan, that says on a required affidavit, I'm not a citizen, but an alien who is or shall become a bona fide resident of the state of Oklahoma.
And by doing that, they're allowed.
Check that box, you can buy whatever
So
you
you
want.
want to take that away? Are you able to? Are you allowed to as governor?
I will sign an executive order on day one in Trump-like manner, if you will,
Sure.
to wipe out that unconstitutional loophole.
We just have 1 minute. I just heard in my ear here. What do Republican voters want, you think, in this primary? I mean, do you think the voters are going to be voting on cultural issues? Are they looking for fiscal conservatism? What do you think is going to make the difference?
Oklahoma Republican voters want growth and opportunity for their kids and their grandkids. And I have a path and a plan to get us there. The way we get there is to make Oklahoma a no-income tax state, abolish property taxes for seniors and veterans because they shouldn't have to pay rent to the government for the rest of their lives, an actual education program that gets kids reading, along with another element of our plan to get order and discipline back into the classroom so teachers can teach and kids can learn. And then we need to secure the land of Oklahoma for the people of Oklahoma by enforcing our Constitution and making it unpleasant for these nefarious bad actors to be in the state of Oklahoma. And when we jack up the cost and restrict the amount of land they can grow marijuana on, they'll leave.
Mike Mazzei, former state senator, now running for governor on the Republican ticket. Really nice having you on the program, Mike. Thanks for being here and good luck.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
Absolutely.